Welcome. Thank you for coming. This is our first venture into the exciting world of data and tables. That's right. We are using Access now. And so let's start up Access. To start it, I can click my Windows key and it should pop up eventually. Access. Type in Access. And up pops Access. But stop right there. Don't go any further because we need to be very careful how we start a database. Access likes to create the file when we start. So we have to be very careful that we have the file named before we go any further. I have to back up in my book here to where we start. We're going to start slow. It's kind of scary because this is a very powerful program. And we have a little presentation here. Where did that go? I have a little presentation. Access databases. There we are. Okay, let's show this cute little presentation here. We'll bring it over to the recording screen. Where'd it go? Come on, come on. There we go. Here it is. All right. Databases. They're about tables, managing the information in tables. They're very powerful. Why are they so powerful? You ever go out on the internet? Maybe once or twice a day, or like every minute of your life if you have your phone with you. Every site you go to, when you pull up your information, when you log in, when you do a search, when you look at your profile, when you send a message, when you read a message, when you upload files, you are dealing with information in somebody's database out there. When you're sending a message out on Facebook, you're writing the message, you click send, it goes into Facebook's database with your name and your timestamp, and it looks up in Facebook's database all your friends that you want to send that message to, or your wonderful event that your cat just ate a snack and had a wonderful dinner and you got a picture of the cat. Send that up. The Facebook database is processing all that. You just search for predestination arguments for against in Google. Google looks up and does a query of Google's gigantic database of what's in there regarding that topic and gets the results back to you in an amazingly short amount of time. So we're going to create just a tiny little sample, a microcosm, we might say, of the world of databases out there. You're going to have your own control over it, and you may find that it's not such a hard thing to do after all. And if you find it's fairly easy for you, you could actually have a career just helping other people learn Access because it's a powerful yet kind of confusing program. And helping people learn it and use it is, if you have the teaching skills and the knack for it, you can make decent money. I remember back in Minnesota, we had a woman come to our house selling Tupperware. My wife invited her. We had a little Tupperware party. And I was in the conversation after, asked her what she did. She taught Access databases as well as was selling Tupperware. And she was enjoying both. There is a camp I go to in Tennessee where some mom of one of the campers made up a database to help track the verses that were being recited by campers. A very nice little database. She taught herself Access as far as I know, maybe went online, watched a few videos, and made a nice management of that information. So I can do a lot of these things in Excel. I can hold information in worksheets. I can change and delete data. But when I get to more sophisticated things like querying for relations between the data, show me all the elements for a particular person after a certain date. It's a lot harder to do that in Excel. It can be done with some smart programming or organization of Excel spreadsheets, but databases are much better for that. So the example in our book is this little company called Pratt Last. They have accounts and they have account managers. And we're going to create two tables, one dealing with their account manager information. We're going to start with that table, and then we're going to create another table of their accounts. their customers' information. Why not throw all that in one table? Well, because a manager of an account with his name, address, city, state, his salary he earns, his shoe size, his children, his address, his rate of bonus, that's in a separate table because we only need to list that once in that table. In the accounts table, we simply reference that account manager's number and don't have to list all his information over and over again. When you have information over and over again in a database, that's called redundancy. That is a horrible thing in databases. It's good for backup, but redundancy is bad because if I change the name of an address that salesman moves, I have to find all the places where I've referenced him, and if it's redundant, I may miss one, and now I have a corrupt database. Because they're so powerful, they cannot be corrupted. So there's our two tables we're going to be creating, and Access is going to help us do that. In a table, we have different parts, and we'll be reviewing this as we build our table. Across the top of our table, the heading for every element in our table is called a field. Those are fields. The field account number, the field title, and the customer. Those are fields in our table. And this is just a drawing of a table represented in Access. We'll be actually doing that ourselves. The fields designate what goes in that column. If it says a number, I can tell Access, only let people type numbers here. It's very important that we establish what data type goes in every field before we start filling it with records. Records is the information that fills my row and adds to the information in my table. If I have a birthday or the date of hire, I do not want them to be able to type anything but something that's a valid date. Excel lets us type anything, but with Access, when I say the date goes here, if they try to type something that's not a date, it will say, sorry, that does not conform to the specific rules for this cell data. You must recant and type the correct thing. So we'll see how that works with Access now. Okay, so we started Access. We're ready to start a new one, but be very careful. I'm going to click once, only one click and no more. And before I click again to say create, I tell Access where to keep my database because it's creating this before I even start. A database has multiple things inside of it. You almost think of it as a folder of wonderful objects like tables and queries. So before I make my database, I decide where I'm going to put it by clicking on my folder. I'm going to put it over here in my OneDrive in my cs101 section 2 and give it the name right here. I decide my file name and I'm going to call it Manning Access Module 1 Pratt Last. I'll call it my Pratt Last Accounts. The most important thing is your last name in that file name. So when I download it and look at your wonderful work, I know this is yours. Now I click OK. It's ready to create that file and let me enter the wonderful world of databases. Once I click create. All right, so now we're ready. Here we go. Da 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 da. Here's a database. Now, isn't that exciting? We're looking at something that looks very much like a table. I mean a worksheet. But now we're going to start modifying it and see how it behaves. And I'm going to zoom in on this for you because it's hard to do it any other way. I'm going to have my little book on the other side here. So I'm going to put my Access database here. And I'm going to magnify in. And we'll kind of come over here and start now modifying what's in my database. I'm looking at this database table we call this view the Datasheet View. Okay, so we're getting ready to add items to it. We have to name that column. We're going to give that column a name. We're going to call it account manager number. I forget what we're going to call it. Where I'm looking for the page in the book here. There we go. Table. Account manager. It's going to be a number. And if you look in your book on page, what page is this I'm on here? On page AC9, it's showing what's going to go in each column of our table. Okay, so here we go. So if I want to give this one a name, I click here. Actually, I'm going to change the name of this one. This one is going to become my account manager number. So I'm going to click on this one. It's selected in the gray. We're not clicking in the row below. We're clicking in the gray where it says ID. And we're right-clicking then, and we're going to rename that field. I'm going to rename that account manager number. Doesn't like you. Click in the gray. Let's try this again. Click in the gray. And another way to do it is come up here and click name and caption. How about there? Click name and caption. That lets me edit the properties of that. The name of it is going to be account manager number. Account manager number. Click in the gray. The field name you enter does not follow Microsoft Access in your royalty case name from the do Control Z. You type something. Control Z. Now click in the grid. Oh, delete that. Control Z again. Control Z. Yes. Okay. Now click in the gray right there. Now click name and caption at the bottom. Okay. Now we're going to change the name to account manager number. The caption is going to be, what is the caption going to be? The caption is going to be AM #. The description is going to be unique account manager. I clicked name and caption. So I can always go back to that. I can always right-click rename after I have that. I can always right-click rename down here, but I can get to more by clicking name and caption. I can control the name of it, but the caption is what shows up at the top of the column. And we're going to be doing a better way than this, but we're introducing you first to Datasheet View. This is Datasheet View, and anytime I select on a column, I can decide what goes in there. Oh, and I also want to change that after I click OK to name and caption. I also want to change what goes in that column to not be auto number. I want that to be short text. Short text. Unique account number, that's what I'm putting for a description. That's just a comment, so it really doesn't affect how it works. And I can always come back and edit it by selecting the column in the gray and adjusting name and caption. Now, I want to change the field size, and this is an important thing about Access. Remember how I said it wants to control what data goes in there? It also wants to be in control of how much data can go in that field. So we don't want anything but a 2-digit account manager number. So we reduce our field size from the default 255 to 2.
Minus for some reason the field size is like I can't click on it.
Right, because it needs to be short text. If you don't have short text, it will not be available. See, if it's a number, it has other properties. So we first have to establish what type it is, then the field size can be chosen. And this is Access. Remember, before Access came along, the only people that could do databases were really geeky nerdies with lots of pens in their pockets. They didn't see anyone else in the world. They didn't have any suntan whatsoever. This made databases a little more friendly to the average person, but they're still kind of complicated. And there's places for it to confuse you in so many places. So we're just getting a taste of it. Maybe you'll have even a little more respect for those people with the no tan and the geeky glasses, no social life, because they just love interacting with computers and working on databases. All those people at Google done a lot of work, and Access is just a way to try to make the databases available to the common people. All right, so we name that column. Now we're going to name one more column before we go to an easier way to do this. On this column, we want to make another thing called short text, because this is going to be the last name of our account manager. So I click short text for the type of data I want to put there, and it highlights the name of that field. I don't want it to be called field 1. I want that to be called last name. Last name. And once I click off of it, those field sizes will be available to me. And I want the field size available for this to be 15. 15 for my field size of last name. We're limiting our account managers to only have last names of 15 characters or less. Later on, we could always come back and modify our database to allow longer. So I click the field, and if oh, what happened? I didn't like that. Okay, I'm just going to go up to name and caption and change that. I think it was expecting me to hit enter and then go back. So last name. Notice I'm leaving the description and caption alone because it seems obvious what that means. And the field size of 15. I'm going to try that again and see if it's waiting for a enter. So I click short text, type the name. First name is the name of this column. Now this time I'm going to hit enter before I do anything else. Now I'll come back and click on it, and now I can adjust its field size. It's a little awkward to have to do multiple things and not be able to adjust my field size right away. Make sure it's short text, and it's a little weird. You have to click on it, make a change, and then come back. It's kind of awkward, this whole Datasheet View. So now we're going to take you to a different way of entering this information. We're going to take a little stroll up to the upper left corner to the triangle and pencil representing take me to the design view of the table. This icon here, once I click on it, takes me to a different view. It wants me to save my table first, and we're calling this table account manager, right? Account manager table. So I type in the name of my table, account manager, and click and hit enter. Now I am in design view of my table. This lets me more easily see what the name of each column is going to be and what type of information it is, and down below I can adjust properties of my fields. This is I think it's a easier to understand way of designating the headings of everything in my table. I can always go back to Datasheet View, but let's enter the rest of the information about the headings in my table using this, and I'll let you decide which one you think is easier to use. So now we're going to enter the other fields that we want to keep track of information regarding our account managers. This next piece of information is going to be street, and this is all listed on page AC9. Street, it's going to be short text. That's the default. Once I select that, I can come down here and say field size is 20 for my street. I want 20 to be my maximum size because street names can be longer. And then city, short text, the maximum size of a city name, let's make it 2 as well. I mean 20. The maximum size then will be, we'll have postal code. And because we're not from Canada, we're restricting that postal code to 5 characters. Oh, I forgot states. What do? I can right-click in the gray, insert row, just like a spreadsheet, I can insert a row above that. Everything's short text up till now, and the field size of a state is 2. We're restricting it to 2 letters. And after postal code, we have a start date. Now, start date isn't something we can just type anything in. We want access to have a little more control over that. So we're going to change that from a short text to a date time type of data. This will make sure that they enter something that has to properly represent a date and time. So what data type is doing, it's making sure what they enter in that field matches what we're expecting. And access will do the rule enforcing for us. And we'll show how later on we can make the messages come up nicely. So start date, a salary. Since this is a dollar figure, guess what type of data we want to make sure that comes out to be? Currency, exactly, because we want to make sure they don't accidentally type a letter when it can't be interpreted as a number by the computer, which would want to be calculating people's salaries and calculating our budget. We need to do math, and if we have something here that can't be converted to a number, we'll have all sorts of errors in our math. So we're forcing that data must be in that format or it will not be allowed to be entered. And one more, bonus rate. That is going to be a number, so I choose number, but a special kind of number. Not an integer, because we're going to do some calculations and it's going to be a floating point number that could have something after the decimal. So we click down here in the field size, and we're going to change that type of number to be a single. Lonely number. Single, what that means, that stands for single precision floating point. The format of it is going to be a fixed format, not European, not percent, not scientific, a fixed format number. And the decimal places, instead of auto, we're going to set our decimal places to be 2. So I can select from it or type 2. So bonus rate is going to be a number with decimals, but up to only 2 numbers after the decimal place. So we've established now, and I can always go back one by one through my table, compare it to what I see on page AC9, and see my field sizes. And let's see, I think that, do they have comments? No comments needed. You can always add comments if you like. It doesn't change how the database works. So remember what we've done here. We've gone from Datasheet View to Design View. This is what the more sophisticated database programmers, this is all they would see at the start. And then when they generate output, they would print out this kind of things as they listed the data in their table. So here's my table all ready for data. We've established the order, the type of data, and remember we're in Datasheet View. If I click on any of these fields, I can click fields up here and it shows me what I was seeing before, the field size that I had set. So I could adjust these things in Datasheet View or in Design View. So what we've looked at is creating a table, controlling how data goes in, naming our columns before we even think about entering data. We're organizing, we're structuring our tables before we can put any data in it. Now, quick little survey of the class. Which do you think is easier to deal with? Datasheet View, where you can click in the column and decide what goes in that column? Or Design View, where you have them listed with the type here and the properties down below? Which do you find easier? This one? Just this information about what goes into the table. Notice with this Design View, you cannot enter data. You can only control the structure of your table. So to actually enter information into your table, you have to go over to this view because that lets you control what's in the columns as well as the data going in there. That makes sense? So we have created a table. I'm going to close the table, saving changes. If I ever want to open the table again, I come over here to my little navigator and I can double click in my table. It takes me to Datasheet View. If I want to go over to Design View, I can always click on the triangle pencil and get back to Design View, controlling the structure of my database. We'll be coming over to more information about things we can do with our tables. I'm going to close this again just to show you one more thing. If I have the wrong name in my table, it has to be closed before I can rename it. If I decided I didn't like that name of my table, I could rename it now. But if it's open, if I double click, if I go try to rename it now, I think it will complain, sorry, I can't rename it because you have it open. So these are called objects in my database. This is a table object. We're going to be creating more objects in our database.
Wait, so how do you get it to close?
Oh, to get it to be closed, I think I can right click close, or over to the right you have a little X way hiding over there. You can also click that little X. That closes my table. And notice I'm not closing my database. I'm closing the table that's inside my database, because a database is a collection of tables and queries and forms and reports. You're going to learn about those 4 things. But we have to start with tables because that's what's holding our data that will then be accessing, manipulating, doing searches on. And remember, a full-fledged database is going to have thousands of entries and searching and maybe 10 or more tables based on the information it's holding. And you'll very likely have a database programmer hired to do something fancy. But this is just giving you a taste of what can be done, and you too can have some feel for how databases work, because this is the way the internet works. So I'm going to come back to my account manager table, double click, and now let's enter account manager information. They gave us some information. I'm going to collapse the navigator just by clicking that double arrow, so I just have room on my screen to see everything. And I have a list of the information for the rest of my account managers. I have 2 account managers we're going to be putting in here. So I'm going to bop ahead to the list of them on page, what page is that? That's page AC17. AC17 shows me the data, but I'll be typing it in here for you as well. And just for fun here, look what happens if I try to type something that doesn't represent a date. Let's just type 123. Uh-oh, I don't know what that is. It will not let me go away from that cell until I correct that. If I don't know what I was supposed to type there, I can Control Z and undo what I was doing and then be able to go somewhere else. Access traps you there until you fix a problem. It's kind of annoying and confusing if you haven't seen that before. So I'm going to go back to the main thing there. As I start to enter data, I must have something here. That's a required field. So I'm going to type 42, and I'm going to tab across to last name and begin typing the rest of my account manager's information. And I have to enlarge my book a little bit because it's so small I can't read. There we go. So Peter, I'm going to shorten these just a little bit just so I can fit them all on one screen for you. You don't have to shorten your columns. I'm just squeezing them in so they don't overlap to the edge of the page. So Peter is the next name. And if I misspell something, I can always come back and click on it and edit. One click puts me in edit mode. And short text doesn't care what I type. Short text will accept any kind of data. Doesn't do spell checking either. And I'm just expanding it just so it's visible. And then city, Davidson. Tabbing to go to the next column. Notice what happens. It won't let me type anymore after I do 2 characters. That's the limited to 2 characters feature. Controlling, making sure the data is entered purely correct data. Same thing for postal code. After I get 5 digits, it won't let me type anything else. It's not forcing it to be a number, but it won't let me type more than 5 characters.
If mine, oh, never mind.
Oh, and if you ever have a problem, you can always go up to Fields and check your field size while you're in Datasheet View. I can always correct it. See, as I go from field to field, it'll show me. I have to click in the gray though if I actually want to change any characteristics. Actually, I don't have to be in the gray. I can adjust its field size. So if I have Fields tab showing as I go from page to page or column to column, I can see the format it's expecting. And since you can see them all now, I'm not going to adjust them anymore. 36,750. And because currency doesn't worry about field size is grayed out. I can't adjust field size for currency data type. And bonus rate is 0.09. Oh, try that again here. 0.09. Erase that. If I ever type something wrong that's not the acceptable format, it will complain and not let go of me until I fix it. As soon as I start typing on the little field with a star at the beginning of it, the record with a star at the beginning of it, it will immediately see, oh, you must be typing a new record, and it makes that pencil appear showing that, oh, you're entering new information. That star row is always at the bottom. If you ever want to enter new information, you can always click in there and it'll start a new record for our database. I'll widen that column so I can see the full name. Now we're going to learn a friendlier way of entering data. It's called forms, but we're going to learn the hard way first, how we can enter it just like it were a spreadsheet. But you can see that this is not terribly friendly. It's a big spreadsheet. I can see a lot of information, but a form would make it much more friendly, and I could even have a picture pop up of the person I'm editing. And so we'll see how forms make it much friendlier, but for now, entering it in datasheet format. Even though I type 1.15, once I click off of that, it puts it in the correct format. And remember the 2-digit limit on the bonus rate? It still leaves it at 0.15. And let's see, does it round it? Oh, look at that. I didn't realize. I thought it would not let me type anything more after the digit. So it actually shows the data there, but it's like Excel. It only displays the 2-digit format. So what you've done here now is we've created a table controlling all the design of our structure of our table using design or datasheet view. If I ever go from one view to another and if I've adjusted some things, it will ask me, do you want to save it? Once I enter data, you notice it's not asking me, do I want to save it? If I change the state for this guy to Iowa and I leave, it didn't say, oh, do you want to save the data? It immediately has been saved into the database. And I don't even have to do a file save unless I want to change the name of my database. File save as, the data base is automatically being updated as I enter this information. I do have a Control-Z undo available, but it's limited. If I close and open the table, I can't come back and undo. Yes? I might have clicked on ascending or descending. Let's see. Oh, I think it may be automatically sorting on that first record number. But I can change the order, and that doesn't really matter to my database, how the order goes. The order that I enter will be what I see at first, but it may decide it wants to sort it ascending on that first column. And that's something we're going to see too, that if I want to alphabetize it on any field, I can just click ascending or descending, and it'll alphabetize. It doesn't only sort that column like Excel will do and really mess up your data. As soon as I sort ascending on anything in here, it just reorders my data. If I want to sort by the highest earners first, it just displays that data to me in that order. So the order that it's in the table does not matter to the database. And I can always filter things or turn off my filter. Decide to turn it on or off. And we're going to be learning about all those fun things later. So that's it for our first view at databases. I'm going to close it. And if there's any changes left, like I've made changes to the design of the table. No, it's not asking me if I want to change what data is in the table. As soon as I type it, the data is saved. But the design is not saved unless I choose to tell it, yes, save the design changes. And that'll be it for today with databases. Just a quick edit a table. Tomorrow, Friday, we will be creating that second table and move on into more sophistication with databases. See you then.